Audio Jungle.
Good afternoon and welcome to our first episode of What Up Doe, where we talk everything related to Detroit sports. I'm Austin Shattuck.
I'm Eli Malone.
Yeah, and today, we're going to just be previewing our first episode with an up-and-coming rising team in the National Football League, the Detroit Lions. They've been on a tear as of late. What are your thoughts on the Detroit Lions this season and, coming into the end of the season too?
I mean, I tell you what, Austin, I think just looking back at you see the national media back, they'd only talk about the Lions when they'd lose to Aaron Rodgers to end their season or when they went 0-16. Like they used to only be on the national media for like all the wrong reasons, like failed draft picks, Matt Patricia, all this. So I
Mm-hmm.
think it's an interesting conundrum to see them all of a sudden be the face, like the media's darling almost, like, oh, like they have the Lions hangover that we saw with the Vikings last night. We're seeing all these positive things about the Lions. So I mean, I think that's kind of the bizarre thing I've taken out of it as like both lifelong Lions fans. Like for me, I think that's bizarre seeing it. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but I think it's really bizarre to see the national media all of a sudden love the Lions.
Yeah, you're totally right about that, Eli. I mean, like a few years ago, we were down in the dumps, even as fans. We had a ton of draft picks that went wrong, and then we hired Brad Holmes, we hired Dan Campbell. Those two are the leaders of this team, and like you said, they've had a ton of draft picks to capitalize on, and they pay their draft picks as well with the recent signings of Ali McNeil, Jared Goff. Of course, he was from the Rams, but Amon-Ra St. Brown, Penei Sewell, just to name a few. And they've all earned their contracts as well. And then on the defensive side of things, Kirby Joseph and Brian Branch this season, they've had 4 interceptions apiece. Usually some of these defenders only get like one or two midway through the season. These guys have gotten four, and they're great. Like, what are your thoughts on Branch and Joseph this season so far?
Well, the thing with, Joseph and Branch in the past, like last year, especially, we saw the secondary still struggled. And we've seen players in the past like Trayvon Diggs and Deron Bland. Interceptions aren't all that matters for safeties and cornerbacks in the NFL because, you can make a couple big plays, but you still are lacking that consistency, which we kind of saw last year from time to time. But this year they're backing it up with their coverage grades as well. I mean, we see
Mm-hmm.
Branch tied for third right now in breakups or deflections right now, and he's played one less game than these guys that are above him. And then we see them with the combined 91.5 coverage grade. So they're also balancing those big plays with consistency, which I think is why you see the secondary starting to grow, and which is why you see Aaron Glenn be able to send more guys consistently this year. Last year, he had to make his blitzes a bit more timely last year because
Mm-hmm.
we saw people like Cam Sutton, um, and then in the past like Amani Oruwariye and Vildor just kind of struggle. So now that we have like consistency on the back end, like you mentioned, they're able to make those big plays.
And that really help that honestly that helps the defensive line out too because when you don't have to or when you do or don't have to send blitzes, you can help the pass rush and the just the run game out as well with Aiden Hutchinson before he went out and Josh Paschal. But a lot of our defensive players have been out, like I mentioned, with injuries. Aiden Hutchinson, the Cowboys game in week 6, he broke his fibula or tibula, and it was a bad scene. They had to cut to commercial right away. Leg snapped right in half a little bit. Clean break. He's had surgery already. He seems in positive moods. Many people have said that he might come back. I don't know this year at least. Do you think he'll come back this year?
Nah, I mean it's kind of like the situation last year with Aaron Rodgers. Like there's all this talk about him maybe coming back. I don't really think it's necessary. I one thing I'd love after this, I'd like to talk to you about, the trade rumors and all that. It's interesting. It's interesting to see how the Lions are gonna. We saw this last game against the Vikings. Aaron Glenn had to kind of send these unique blitz packages which they had 18 combined pressures, which Aiden Hutchinson in his last full game had 13 alone. Like
Yeah.
you're missing a lot. So they showed some flashes. You saw DJ Reader and Ali McNeil. Those guys are gonna have to really contribute, but they're really, I think these next 2 weeks, probably before you get to the deadline, they're probably gonna try as long to see if they have anybody, in house. That's kind of been the thing with this regime. I think with all the trade rumors, I got to ask Austin, like, do you think what kind of magnitude of a move do you think is necessary? Because I think regardless of if you think they should make a trade, everybody thinks like a certain level player is who they should go for.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm still on the fence for those answers. I always prefer in-house moves, and just off of previous records and previous years with Brad Holmes, he's liked in-house moves as well. We did just go out and sign a smaller signing with Isaiah Williams, or Isaiah Thomas, I should say, on the defensive line. And he hasn't played yet. He's getting a few reps in at practice this week against the Titans. He could see some action. I just read on Twitter today, actually, that he could see some action because, Josh Paschal, he's been out with an illness. Aiden Hutchinson, an injury. But like I said, in-house moves are always the best because you don't have to spend all that money. And most of these guys, that's just the name of the game. Who wants the most money these days? People like Max Crosby, I know you and I have agreed on this. We don't think that Max Crosby should go to the Lions, to be honest. We don't have enough money to spend for him. He's a great player, don't get me wrong, but Aiden Hutchinson is kind of a future Lion, and he kind of missed this whole year a little bit. Weeks 1 through 6 he played, but 6 through, however long the season goes, he's not going to be able to play. For Eli, I'm Austin. Thank you for tuning in to What Up Doe, and hope you come back sooner than later.
What up,
See ya.
Doe?